Hello, boys and girls. I'm back to tell you the first lesson for day 3 of The Great Escape. And so, if you have not watched the previous 2 days, you should probably go back and watch that. It'll make this lesson make more sense. Now, yesterday, we learned about preparation, how Moses was prepared. He was educated in the palace. He was educated to be the next Pharaoh. But then, after he left the palace when he was 40 years old, he became a shepherd, and he learned how to be a good shepherd. And that was part of his preparation too. And then God sent him back to Egypt to lead his people out of Egypt. Now today, our word for today is problem. We don't really like problems, do we? But problems can be good for us. They can help us grow. They can help us to be more like Jesus if we trust in him. But today we're going to see that Pharaoh did not trust in God. He had a hard heart. And we're going to see what Moses did when he had a problem. And then in the second story, we're going to see how Jesus dealt with a problem. Okay? So, Moses went back to Egypt, and he met up with Aaron, and they went to the people of Israel, and they believed them. He told them what God had said, and they believed him. They were ready for this. Well, then he had to go to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh, when they asked him to let the people go, he said, I don't know this God that you're talking about. Now, he knew other gods. I mean, he knew false gods. He worshipped the Nile River of all things. And he worships many statues of false gods who couldn't do him any good. And he trusted in them, I suppose, but they weren't going to do him any good. But he said he didn't know this God, the God of the Hebrews, the God of the children of Israel. So he wasn't going to let him go. And he told Moses and Aaron to get back to work. And then he called in his taskmasters. And he said, these people are lazy. Let's not give them any more straw. Now, straw was an important ingredient in bricks. And that's what the taskmasters had the children of Israel making. They made lots and lots and lots of bricks, and they built cities for Pharaoh. But the Pharaoh told the taskmasters, don't give them any more straw. Make them get their own straw, and still make them make just as many bricks a day. Ooh, that doesn't sound too good, does it? No. They have to do more work, and they still have to make the same number of bricks. So the taskmasters went out and told the children of Israel that they were not going to make them any more. They were not going to give them any more straw. And when they didn't make as many bricks that day, they beat the foreman of the leaders of the children of Israel. And so the leaders of the children of Israel went to Pharaoh to complain about it. And Pharaoh told him it was because Moses and Aaron had asked him to let them go. And then they got mad at Moses and Aaron. Now, yesterday, the day before, they were glad to see Moses and Aaron, glad to believe that God had sent them. And now they're blaming Moses and Aaron for making the taskmasters mad at them. So what did Moses do? This is a problem, right? He went to the Lord and he prayed. And he prayed, Lord, I don't see how you're delivering them. You've made it harder for them. And the Lord told Moses to go back to Pharaoh again. And so he went back to Pharaoh and he said, again, God says to let my people go. And Pharaoh again said no. And then Moses told Aaron to throw his rod down. And of course, it turned into a snake. But the magicians of Pharaoh also could turn their rods into snakes. We know that was a trick. It wasn't real. But they threw their rods down and they seemed to turn into snakes. But Aaron's rod swallowed up all the other snakes, all the other rods. And then he picked it back up and it turned back into his rod. And Pharaoh's heart was hard. And so the next day, God told Moses and Aaron to go down to the Nile River and to meet Pharaoh at the river, and to tell him that if he would not let the children of Israel go, that they were going to turn the river into blood. And so they went down to the river and asked him again to let the children of Israel go, and he said no again. And Moses told Aaron to strike the water with his rod, and when he did, the river turned to blood. And the fish died in it. And it was very smelly, I'm sure. But you know, the magicians could do a trick like this too. They made it look like they were turning water into blood. And so Pharaoh's heart was hard, and he wouldn't let them go. Well, the next thing God did was he sent a plague of frogs. And there were frogs everywhere. The frogs came out of the Nile River and they were just everywhere. They were jumping in their beds and they were jumping in their soup and wherever they went, there were all these frogs. And Pharaoh called in Moses and he said, ask your God to take away the frogs and I'll let you go. Well, Moses said, when do you want me to ask God to do this? And he said, tomorrow. I don't know why he didn't say today, but he said tomorrow. And Moses said, okay, it'll happen tomorrow, so you'll know that it's God speaking. And so Moses went out and he prayed, and God took away the frogs. But they died. All the frogs died that weren't in the Nile River. And there were piles of them. They were cleaning them out, and there were piles of them, and they were really smelly. And then Pharaoh hardened his heart again. And he said, no, I'm not going to let you go. So Moses told him that God would send lice. And he told Aaron to pick up some of the dirt of the ground and throw it in the air. And it became lice everywhere. It became lice on all the people and on Pharaoh. And I don't know if you know what lice are like, but it really itchy. It really itchy. So, and they didn't like that. But the magicians tried to make lice, and they could not do it. So they told Pharaoh, this is the finger of God. We can't do this. We can't make lice. But Pharaoh's heart was hard, and he still would not let them go. Now, up to this point, the blood, the frogs, and the lice were covered the whole of the land of Egypt. Not just the Egyptians, but the Israelites had to deal with them too. But this next time, God said, I'm going to send flies. But the flies will only be on the Egyptians. It will not be on the Israelites. So he made a difference between the Egyptians and the Israelites. The Egyptians would have flies, and the Israelites would not have flies in their homes. And so God sent a plague of flies. And it was terrible. Can you imagine how annoying it is to just have one fly buzzing around you? But there were swarms of flies buzzing everywhere. I don't think you could even open your mouth or you'd get flies in them. Oh, yuck. So, flies. And Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron, and he said, get rid of the flies, please, get rid of the flies. Get rid of this death. And Moses prayed to get rid of the flies, but then Pharaoh's heart was hard again, and he would not let the children of Israel go. And so God said he was going to send a plague on the livestock of the Egyptians. But the livestock of the Israelites would not be affected by this plague. And this was going to be a plague on all of the livestock of the Egyptians. It wouldn't just be on their cows. It would be on their cows and their sheep and their goats and their horses and whatever livestock they had. It would be on all of it. And so Pharaoh's heart was hard, So God sent this plague. And many of their livestock died. All kinds of livestock were dying. And Pharaoh sent over to where the Israelites lived, and he saw that their livestock wasn't affected by this plague. Their livestock wasn't sick, it wasn't dying. But his heart was still hard. And so God told Aaron to pick up some dust to the ground again and throw it in the air. And people broke out with boils on their skin. The magicians couldn't even stand up. They had so many boils all over them. And all the Egyptians were like this. But the children of Israel did not have the boils. But Pharaoh's heart was still hard. He would not let the children of Israel go. So next God said, I'm going to send hail, a hailstorm like nothing you've ever seen. And if you want to keep your servants and your livestock alive, you'll have to bring them inside before this hailstorm starts. Well, some people believed him, and they brought their livestock in. They brought their servants in, and everybody was safe inside when this hailstorm hit. But some people did not believe him, and they left their servants and their livestock outside. And so the hailstorm started, and it was like nothing they had ever seen. It was bigger, and there was fire accompanying the hail, fire falling from heaven with the hail, and everybody who was outside was killed. All the animals were killed that were outside. And Pharaoh called for Moses, and he said, I've sinned. I've sinned. Will God forgive me this sin? And Moses prayed for the hail to stop. But then Pharaoh changed his mind, and he hardened his heart again. So Pharaoh hardened his heart again. And now God told Moses, and Moses told Aaron, and Aaron told Pharaoh that he was going to send another plague. This is the 8th plague that God has sent on Egypt. And each time, Pharaoh has hardened his heart. And so Aaron told him that this plague would be locusts, and they would devour everything that was left. And but Pharaoh's heart was hard, and he would not let them go. And so he sent them away. And then his advisors came to him, and he said, why don't you let them go? Why don't you let the men go? And so that they can worship their God. And then, don't you know that the land of Egypt is destroyed? And so Pharaoh called back Moses and Aaron, and he said, I'll let you go, but who's going to go? And they said, our young, our old, everybody's going to go. And Pharaoh said, no, you can't take your children. You can't take your women. I'll never agree to that. And so Moses and Aaron went out again, and God sent the locusts. And the locusts ate up everything that was left. They ate all the green leaves on the trees. They ate the wheat that was just coming up. They just devoured everything. And Pharaoh called them back again, and he said, oh, I've sinned against God. I've sinned against you. Please take this death away. And so Moses prayed, and God took the locusts away. He sent a breeze that blew them all away. But then Pharaoh's heart was hard again. And he wouldn't let him go. So the next plague, the 9th plague, was when God sent darkness. And it was darkness that you could feel. It was so dark you couldn't see anything in front of your face. Their lights didn't even work. They just had darkness. But the children of Israel had light. So Pharaoh sent for Moses and Aaron, and he said, you children can go, your old people can go, everybody can go, but you have to leave your livestock here. And Moses said to him, no, we need our livestock because we're going to make sacrifices to our God. And Pharaoh got really angry, and he said, go out from here and don't you ever come back to see me again, because next time you see my face, you're going to die. And Moses said, you're right. I won't see your face again, because God's going to send one more plague. And after that, you will let us go.